Hi guys, welcome to another episode of The Curtain Rises, and today something a little bit different. I'm going to be looking at a game that I had about a year ago or close to. This was at Grace Lutheran College at the Leo Wilkinson Memorial. I'm not sure, it might have been round 3 or 4. It's about halfway through the tournament anyway, and the reason I wanted to show this game is because I had a game pretty similar to it, and it's a theme I've done in previous videos, so I'm going to showcase this game as an introduction to it, and then also show the game that I had, believe it or not, against the exact same opponent in a very similar position, except the game ended slightly differently, whereas this game was more of a simplifying to just a one end game for black. I was playing black against my white opponent, Darcy Mendoza, and the game started e4, c5. Now, it was really interesting at this point in time last year because this is when I really started to doubt the Sicilian. I wasn't sure. I had a string of really bad results playing it. I lost against some high-rated opponents and some other opponents with a rating similar to mine. I really wasn't doing that well with the dragon, and I thought I've got to try something different. I don't think I can play the dragon anymore because there's so much theory on it and people know these specific lines to go into it, and I've had losses against different Yugoslavs. I've had losses against the Fianchetto variation where white castles kingside, and I've had losses even against a few classical variations, so I really haven't done that well with it. So this time though, I thought I'll give it one more crack. I'll give the dragon one more shot, and this is the game that eventuated. So we start out with just a typical open Sicilian dragon setup and bishop e3, so I thought, great, okay, he knows. Let's see how much of the Yugoslav my opponent knows. Now, my opponent's rated some 600 points below me, but this isn't, I've experienced this many times, this isn't a reason to suddenly think, oh, okay, well, I can just go easy, or I can place, I don't think they'll know this, so I'll play this and trip them up, because more often than not, it ends up coming back to haunt you later on. So, bishop g7, and he played bishop e2, and I was a little bit surprised because I really thought he'd be going for a Yugoslav, but bishop e2, so this is kind of a classical setup. Knight f6 and f3, and automatically I don't think this is great for white just because that bishop is hemmed in somewhat by the f3 pawn. Knight c6, knight c3, castles kingside, and I really thought maybe he'd be castling kingside, but then I realized because of that f pawn, he's not going to waste the tempo and play it to f4 and then castle kingside. So really, he's going to be looking at queenside and starting his attack on the kingside. So yep, queen d2, and I decided just to take this knight. A friend of mine, Tyson Walker, or Khaleesi Walker, we should call him, because he's just mad obsessed about his dragons playing as black. He really likes this line where you take the knight and then put your bishop on e6 before he thinks that if there is no bishop. And there's a line in the Yugoslav where you do that. It's called the Topolov variation, I think, because the Bulgarian super GM Veselin Topolov, former world champ, used to play this a lot as black. Take the knight and put the bishop on this diagonal when there's no bishop covering, no bishop sitting on these lines here. Okay, so you throw a bishop there. Next move, my opponent queenside castles. I decided to play queen a5 now. Note that if he plays knight to d5, I can simply take with check. Has to really take back, and then we swap off, and he's losing a pawn. So he's not going to go that way. So I go queen a5, and he rightfully plays king b1, stopping that idea. I go rook f to c8 with intentions of playing rook a b8 and pushing my b pawn. f4. And here I had a bit of a think, because when he played f4, this is really a mistake. Simply because he's just wasted a tempo. He's wasted a tempo developing his pawn to f3 and then moving. It's using 2 moves to go from f2 to f4, which is just a real waste. And I missed a real clinical, just simple knight takes. This would have been knight takes e4 would have just been simply crushing. Because if he takes back with the knight, we've got queen takes pawn check, and then followed up by queen a1 mate. That knight's on. It's just an absolute mess, because that knight's going down on c3 no matter what. I mean, his position's just well and truly lost at this stage. But instead, I played rook takes, which I think is still good, perfectly fine for black. Probably didn't have to do this. I think I had the much easier, simpler win with knight takes. For some reason, I didn't even see that. So I played rook takes, exchange sacrificing, removing the knight, queen taking, queen takes pawn, king runs off to c1, and now I play knight takes e4. This is kind of a mistake. What I actually should have done is I should have gone with queen a1 check, king goes to d2, knight checking, knight forking that king runs off, and then I can either play queen takes, king takes, and then I follow up by taking that queen and simplifying. Just a one endgame. He's down a couple of pawns. No way he's coming back into this one. Or I could have also done something like this. Could have played not queen a1. Sorry, I took a knight. King goes there. Okay, so instead of queen takes, I could have just done knight takes. If rook takes, I end up taking the pawn there, and then a pawn takes knight, I fork, and we simplify this sort of similar situation, except I've got the extra piece. So that would have actually been far more convincing. But I didn't see any of this, sadly to admit, so instead, play knight. He tries to swap off queens. I kind of overlooked this fact. So I took his queen on a3, pawn takes, move my bishop to pin that pawn, covers it with the rook. Now I played a6. Here I really wasn't sure what to do. I intended to just push my pawns down the board, have my bishops covering all the squares. I mean, I've got a pawn majority on the queen side, but his rooks can be painful. The good thing is, though, his h-rook just didn't do anything all game. It just sat there. So I was kind of lucky in that respect. He charges forward with g4, put my rook onto c8, targeting that king. And here he makes a big mistake. He plays bishop to d3. After bishop to d3, I attack that bishop, and when the bishop moves back, bam, winning the bishop because of the pawn pin. And that's where he actually resigned. So at this point in time, there really wasn't much to be done here, because he was going to lose that bishop no matter what. He needed to move his king forward maybe. I think I really misplayed this game though. I really should have just taken, where was it? I should have just taken on e4, and this would have just been all over Red Rover. But, sorry, my mistake. I should have played, no, it's further back than that. It was when he played f3. No, f4. Then I should have taken on e4, and this would have just been crushing. So I made a couple mistakes in this game. Overall, I did get the win, which was good, but I think I should have realized that, oh wow, that the knight is the knight is guarding that. The knight is guarding the a2 square. He can't go anywhere. I'm going to be attacking the queen. I'm getting a pawn anyway. I'm going to blow this file wide open. My bishops are all targeting the queen side. Just the activity is really good, but I just missed this fact. So I definitely should have played that move. I sort of nice little rook sacrifice, but in this case it didn't quite. And I think I was kind of lucky. You probably could have put up more of a fight in the endgame, but there we go. That's one down. So stay tuned for the next game, because if you've paid attention to the last 10 moves or so, you'll recognize something very similar to that the next game has in common with this one. So until then, this is 10 Curtain J signing off.